This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or you can join my Patreon. Now, on with the show. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Today's video is another one of these that seems to be occupying the Tuesday slot at the moment, where I just blether on for a bit about my 5 favourite things in a particular category. And today's video, I suspect, is going to be a little bit divisive because we're talking about none other than Eric Clapton. And, there are some people who worship everything that he's ever played, going back to the whole Clapton is God graffiti that adorned, some wall in London, famous. I'm sure you've seen the picture. There it is anyway, I'll put it up on screen. That was when he was making a name for himself in the Blues Breakers. And there are other people who think that he is the most boring, dull as ditch water, uninteresting, overrated person to have ever picked up a guitar. The thing is, I've got kind of a foot in both camps on this issue. I've probably got splinters in my backside from sitting on the fence on it, because there are entire decade or more long stretches of his career where I've just, I've got no interest in it, frankly. Everything from about 461 Ocean Boulevard through to the stuff he was doing in the early 90s, all of the 80s stuff, albums like August and Behind the Sun and stuff like that. Not interested at all. Slow Hand, Wonderful Tonight, none of that sort of stuff has any appeal to me at all. It's elevator music, frankly, and I have no time for it. But the thing is, when he's got the fire in his belly, when he's not just phoning it in, when he's not just paying the mortgage, if he still has one, when he's just, enthused by the music and he's playing like he can, then I think there are a few guitarists who can, certainly set the hairs on the back of my neck on end the way he can. So here are my 5 favourite Eric Clapton performances, beginning with
Layla.
How could this not be on the list? Indeed. Now, how I discovered this track has a lot to do with how I got into blues music and so on. Basically, there used to be, on the local TV station in this part of the world, I think it was Tyne Tees TV, there used to be a local current affairs show called Coast to Coast, and it was hosted by a chap called Eric Robson. No relation. Not that I know of. Anyway. And the theme music to this was this electrifying electric guitar riff kind of thing, and I didn't know what it was called. I just knew I loved it. Turned out it was Layla. They'd used Layla as the theme for a local current affairs show. Yeah, go and figure it. But anyway, managed to find out by asking, people who were in the know, kids at school who were a couple of years above me, what's that theme music to that show on TV? Oh, it's called Layla and it's by Eric Clapton. So the next day I'm down at Woolworths in the vinyl section, and I buy the Layla album, and that's the album that got me into blues. A large part of the reason why I got into blues. And just that track, for me, it's just incredible. I love the way it does that odd key change from, the riff and the chorus in D minor, then down a semitone to C sharp minor for the verse, and then back up again. It just that the whole thing for me is par excellence, as they say. And that outro section where it just goes off on a tangent and goes into like this beautifully melodic piano part that, you got to think, what was the reaction of the first person to hear that? These odd key changes in the main body of the song, and then that outro that just seems to go off on a tangent. That's the sort of thing that would never get past any record company executive these days. But thank heavens it did, frankly. So yeah, Layla, it couldn't not be on the list, so that's why it is. Next.
Mean Woman Blues.
Right, as I mentioned, large parts of Eric's career are just a closed book to me. That whole kind of 70s and 80s kind of thing, mid-70s to late 80s, early 90s thing is a bit of a barren patch for me. But there were one or two massively brilliant exceptions to that, and this is the first one of which we're going to talk about now. In 1985 or 86, I think it was, Eric took part in a performance, a rockabilly session, which I've talked about many times on this channel, which was, sort of a tribute to an audience with Carl Perkins, and, Dave Edmunds' band provided like the sort of the core of the band, and he was there obviously, and Ringo Starr on drums for large parts of it. The lads from the Stray Cats were there. Eric turned up, Roseanne Cash. It was just one of these big all-star jam sessions, and Eric played on a few songs there, and if I had to pick a favourite, it would be this one, Mean Woman Blues. You can see, if you watch the clip that's linked down below, Carl Perkins just absolutely kind of shaking his head in wonder at Eric's playing. He was absolutely on fire that night. You get the feeling that he had that fire in his belly, and it was incredible performance. Not technically difficult, because Eric isn't a shredder. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the passion and the feel and just the phrasing, and just how the way at a massively fast tempo like that, it's about 200 beats per minute, he never ever seems to run out of ideas of what to play. It's a fantastic, just up-tempo, bluesy guitar performance, and what a sound. This is just before he retired Blackie, his famous mongrel Strat, and I've always said that Eric never really has had a better sound out of a Strat than he got out of Blackie. So, fantastic performance. Go and check it out, and, that's why it's on the list. Next.
Key to the Highway.
Okay, yes, back to the Layla album for this one. As I said earlier, this is the album that played a large part in turning me on to blues. This is the late 70s, early 80s kind of period, and there was a big 50s rock and roll revival going on in the UK at the time, and one band who were a big part of that were the Stray Cats. And the B-side of one of their singles, a track called Stray Cat Strut, was a live recording of a slow blues called Drink the Bottle Down. And I can't for the life of me at the moment, with the passing of time, say whether I heard Key to the Highway first or Drink the Bottle Down first. But they were both around that same sort of period, and it was my, introduction to sleazy, laid-back, gritty, earthy, sweaty, slow blues, and what an introduction. Key to the Highway is basically just the Derek and the Dominoes band, with obviously Eric and Bobby Whitlock and Carl Radle and et al. And Dwayne Allman as well. And the majority of this track is just Dwayne and Eric trading guitar solos, trading licks, and you can tell there's just such a magical vibe about this track. The people in the studio, the people, kind of sitting behind the desk, and the musicians on the session. There's a moment that I think you can detect in a lot of performances, recorded performances, when, everybody realizes just how good this piece of music is that they're playing at that time, and they raise their game accordingly. I get the feeling, because when you listen to this track, it just kind of fades in out of nowhere. It's probably some kind of impromptu jam that, after it started kind of, getting ahead of steam, somebody in the control room pressed record, and then they had to fade it in as a way of, capturing it, because the beginning was probably a little bit, raggy and, not worth kind of, saving. So they fade it in, and it just goes on for what seems like about a fortnight, and you never ever tire of it. It's just fantastic playing, fantastic blues. Eric on his Strat, Dwayne, I don't know what he's playing, probably a Les Paul, with that beautiful slide tone that he gets, and it just, everything adds up to something which is, greater than the sum of the parts. So yes, Key to the Highway, fantastic bit of blues guitar, one of the first bits of blues guitar that I ever encountered. So that's why it's on the list. Check it out. Next.
Pros and cons of hitchhiking.
Yeah, one of my favourite Eric Clapton albums from the 80s isn't even an Eric Clapton album. It's a Roger Waters album, the first Roger Waters album since, after his acrimonious divorce from Pink Floyd, I guess. Eric played guitar on the whole album and did some of the tour dates as well. And the title track to this album, the Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking, is just Eric once again immaculate phrasing, just real energy and electricity in the solo. It's incredibly well phrased. It's just the way he just milks every note and every phrase, and it's just a fantastic performance. It's difficult to try and put this kind of thing into words. It's just Eric playing with that same kind of fire in his belly that he would have had, when he was 19 years old and playing on that Blues Breakers album. For me, that's, he's tapping into that same, kind of core of musicianship and musicality that he often lacks, but he wasn't on this track here. So go and check it out. It is certainly well worth a listen. Next.
5 Long Years.
Yeah, as I said, Eric's performances from sort of the mid to late 70s all the way through the 80s for me, apart from the last couple of tracks I've mentioned, were by and large just not worth taking any notice of at all. And then I got the Journeyman album in, I think, was it 1990? It came out, and I actually saw him on that tour as well. I had the chance of a ticket, and I thought, well, it's a night out, isn't it? So I went and saw him on the tour, and it was a pretty good gig, I have to say. The album itself, Journeyman, was starting to give hints that he was getting back in touch with blues. There's a nice version of Before You Accuse Me on there where he's jamming with Robert Cray. And he does a fantastic version of the old Ray Charles tune, Hard Times, on that as well. But as the 90s drew on, he really got back into his blues trousers again. And I think it was in 95 that the album From the Cradle came out. And there are a few tracks I could have picked off that album. The opener, Blues Before Sunrise, some fantastic earthy, gritty, ballsy slide work on that track. But a great version of Hoochie Coochie Man on there as well. But this one, for me, 5 Long Years, it's just, he's on fire, really. I keep using that phrase all the way throughout the video, but, you can tell that it's, again, this is something I go on about a lot in these videos, the eye contact thing, everybody's in the studio at the same time. It's not overdubbed, somebody hasn't recorded their part in LA and, kind of shipped it over to London for it to be, put onto the session. Everybody's in the same room and they're all looking at each other and feeding off the same vibe. And Eric's playing on this. It's Eric, it's not going to be Yngwie or Satriani style shredding, and, it's never going to be, but he's got the phrasing, he's got the touch, he's got that fiery kind of fast blues thing going on, and fantastic performance and a great guitar tone as well. I think he was using a 335 on this, or certainly it's some kind of Gibson. It's not a Strat tone. Fantastic stuff, absolutely brilliant blues playing from Eric on this. So if you're a bit of a Clapton skeptic, then this is probably one of the tracks I would say go and check it out and maybe reevaluate your opinion on such matters. You may end up still hating Eric, but you might just end up liking 1 or 2 tracks. And if I've done anything with this video, if I've done that, then I've achieved something. So there you go, folks. Those are my 5 favourite Eric Clapton performances this week. It may be all different. Ask me again in a couple of weeks, and things might have moved around a little bit. But today, those are the 5 I'm going to pick. Let me know what yours are. If you have 5 favourite Eric Clapton performances, or if any of these tracks that I've suggested here are new to you, and maybe they've perhaps given you a different perspective, just put a line or 2 down in the comments and let us know what you think. Anyway, folks, that's pretty much it for today. I hope you found the video interesting and reasonably entertaining, because that is, after all, the point of doing all of these kind of things. And if you have, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell if you haven't already done so, and why not give me a like while you're at it. Don't forget the live stream Friday 5 p.m. UK time. You know what happens there, but in case you don't, in case you're new to the channel, basically we sit and have a few beers and talk about all matters guitar and music related. It's a fantastic way to kick off the weekend, and I'd love to see you there if you can make it. But for now, I'll bid you all a good day and say thanks for watching, folks. Thank you so much for your time. Look after yourselves, stay well, stay safe, and above all, stay sane. Bye for now.